Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. And this week is Correspondence Week. We keep rolling on. James, you want to introduce this episode's correspondent? I was going to say this week's, but everybody this week. So this episode's correspondent.
I shall. We are with a man who's going to get familiar with Thursday nights next year. Wishes he hadn't, but still had a very, very good season. It is our Leicester City correspondent, Aaron Lagor. How are you, mate?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you guys?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks, mate. How did
Busy.
you feel?
Talking a lot about FPL at the moment.
Yeah, I've been listening to you a lot.
Good.
How did you feel about the end of the season, mate? It was pretty disappointing in the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And I mean, the last time we spoke, we just played Watford away, a game that it was a fair result in the end. But then leading up to the Brighton game, I was going into that. I didn't come across very excited about our prospects of staying in the top four, did I? And
No, you didn't.
No, it went the way I thought it would, and we had chances as well. I mean, obviously the big one to stand out in that remainder of games was Bournemouth, because we see that game out and it's a different story, because it brings everyone's confidence back up. I mean, we were so comfortable in that game as well. It was so frustrating. Obviously, you'd obviously mentioned that I was livid after that game, but
you were.
Any fan that would have watched that and seen the collapse, seasoned professionals just completely losing their head. It wasn't great. So yeah, and obviously we spoke about it not riding on the last game, being United, and again we had chances in the game, we just weren't clinical enough. And in the end, I think injuries and suspensions and things just caught up with us, and a lack of depth really. Yeah, but we ended up in a position where we probably deserved to be in the end. But I think the way that the season panned out, the fact that we finished fifth is a disappointment. But we've got to stay positive, I think.
Do you think if you'd have had the crowds during this period, you'd have stayed in the top four? Do you think that's had any impact at all? Because a lot of the games, when you're at your best, I feel like counter-attacking well, feeding the ball into Maddison, getting the fullbacks high, who were obviously a massive miss for you in the running and stuff.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's a team, other than Vardy's quite a young team, I feel like it springs on energy. Perhaps needs that push from external sources sometimes. We kind of underestimate that a bit. And your lot, next to the away fans, actually at the King Power, can make quite a bit of noise, actually. So I wonder if you really particularly missed that more than others did, maybe.
Yeah, I think we probably did in the end. With it being quite a tight-knit, we do rely on the crowd a little bit, maybe to push us forward in games where we're probably lacking a little bit of confidence. A big part of driving the team on is having Pereira. I mean, I said that it was going to be a big loss when we last spoke, and he was such a massive loss. He's so important to how we play as a team. And obviously, I've been quite critical of Chilwell, and obviously he's looking like he's going to be leaving, but he always gives us plenty of width on that side of the pitch. And yeah, I think we did. I think we actually missed the crowd in the end, and I didn't think it would actually be a big thing with us, because we keep the ball really well, but we just. Yeah, we needed that little bit of extra something, and maybe the crowd would have been good for that, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Chilwell. We should probably just point out at this point that we're recording at a time when Chilwell is still a Leicester player. We suspect by the time this goes out, he might well be a Chelsea player. Either way, he's going to be out of game week 1 anyway. So from a fantasy perspective, doesn't make a huge amount of difference. Pereira's obviously going to be missing from the start as well. Johnny Evans suspended for the first 2. You do start with a set of fixtures which are enticing to people. So I think you've got people now looking at the likes of Justin, or potentially even Luke Thomas, who I thought certainly against us in game week 37, he acquitted himself really well, actually. And in the fixture you won against Sheffield United as well, I thought he played quite well.
Yeah.
But my instinct at the moment is that there's just too many players missing unless you strengthen, or it's probably too close to the start of the season now to have confidence that you've got stability there at the moment. What's your thoughts on the potential assets that I'm mentioning defensively?
Well, I would avoid us completely defensively, at least until Johnny Evans is back. But maybe even further than that. I don't know how Rodgers is going to completely set us up. I did catch a little earlier one of the friendly games, just sort of 10 minutes, just to see how they'd set up, and he had set up with a 4 at the back. So better. I would imagine, I would imagine he would go back to a 4 back. It just depends on personnel mainly, because obviously, like you say, Pereira's out, Chilwell's going. It leaves us very light at the back with Evans suspended as well. So, I mean, I've seen Justin banded around in a few squads and things, in a few drafts, but I would avoid him. I think he's an half decent player, but I don't think you're going to get from him what you think. If he's going to sit there on the bench, fair enough, but I would completely avoid us at the back, and I would probably completely avoid us as a team. I know the fixtures are tempting, but not for me. I'd like to see how we set up and whether we've got over that issue with how we finish, because morale in the squads could be quite low. So
I'm really glad you said that, because I was sitting here thinking, how am I going to break this? That I'm actually interested in almost no one from Leicester City to Aaron. But you're right. The defensive problems are a real issue. I very rarely own the Leicester defender anyway, other than Pereira. I mean, Sky Fantasy Football managers will know, Pereira, when he's fit all day long, is a great asset, and even FPL. 120 odd points he scored last year from 2,500 minutes. He would have been up there with 160, 170, which is similar to what Matt Doherty scored. So he's still there and worth his 6 million, but literally no one else. The midfield now, I mean, you look at the way that everyone's trying to get the premium midfielders in the 11, 12 million bracket, means they've got to find cheaper options, and Harvey Barnes, Maddison at 7 and stuff don't seem like they're the right ones to fit. And Vardy's Vardy, right? When he came up post restart, once the goals started coming for him, you could see the Vardy of old was there. But at £10 million now, you're looking at Danny Ings 8.5, Jimenez 8.5, Martial 9, Timo Werner 9.5,
Aguero 10.5.
There you go, Harry Kane 10.5.
More the point, isn't it?
It really feels like, I think we are a bit naive in the tried and trusted. Vardy's been delivering for the last 2 seasons consistently. We can't disregard that, but it still feels like 10 million for Vardy. I'd rather pay 8.5 for Ings or 9 for Martial. Thank you very much. And then you end up in a situation where, I'm not picking anybody from Leicester City anymore.
Yeah, I think what's turned people's heads is the fixtures, because on paper they look a good set of fixtures, but flip it on its head. If the fixtures aren't great, are you still going anywhere near us? I don't think so. I mean, personally, I wouldn't. I mean, I'm a little bit like you, James. Like, you're avoiding Tottenham.
Quite rightly so as well.
Yeah, and I feel the same with Leicester, because I can't. I said it to one of our fans. I can't do it to myself at the moment. Having him towards the end of before lockdown, the time when he was going on that dry spell, it was so painful having him in, because it was kind of like, your team's doing badly, but then also your FPL team's doing badly because you've got him in there. And I think I'll just completely avoid this to start with. I do think Vardy over the season could be good value, but it all depends on the team around him. If there's not any creativity there, then he really relies on that. So yeah, for me, it's a complete avoid for the start, for sure.
Jamie Vardy probably isn't under consideration for me unless I decide that I've got enough in the bank that allows me probably to back him in game week 1 and game week 1 only, and then to move to Martial if that becomes part of my plan. Because the first game week 1 fixture away to West Brom is decent. West Brom won more away games than home games last season, actually. And I think every year, the one mistake me and Sujid both admit we've made with Vardy every year is we go, he's going to slow down eventually. He's getting, what is he, 34 now or something? He still looks like he's got that same energy and hunger, doesn't he? I think for him, it's always a case of he needs to play against a team that in a lot of cases is going to go and attack against him. so he's got the space to run it in behind. Or B, he needs to have people that are going to create for him. And Maddison, who was another one who hugely frustrated during the winter period for us FPL managers, is the main source of creativity, right? He hasn't had him in any of that restart period. So I don't think we should look at 4 goals and an assist in 9 games as particularly bad. It's just the others, to be honest, including Kane at slightly higher, and the ones Suj mentioned at lower, like Danny Ings, and even further still, if you're looking to go for more, spread your balance with more money in the midfield area, it just feels better to go without, in my opinion. Yeah,
no, I agree. I think I was listening to another pod earlier, and they were saying that after restart, Vardy's chances or conversion rate was well down on the season in that short period. And it might be down to the fact of he was lacking sharpness, and also maybe the chances weren't coming as regularly. So he was kind of taking shots where he may not have been late, earlier on in the season. So it screams to me the fact that he wasn't quite himself. So, and that obviously is a big part of the team as well. If the team around him is creating chances, he's thinking the next one's coming along in 5 minutes, I'll be fine, then it's a different story. I know he's normally quite clinical anyway, and the stats aren't a big thing with him, but I'd want to see, from an FPL point of view, I'd want to see us for the first 2 or 3 games at least, just to see whether he's getting chances and how we look as a team before I go there, to be honest.
Which was the game that he broke his scoring duck and Palace, and they did the analysis on the TV commentary, and I can't remember whether it was on Match of the Day or Sky or whatever it was on, but they were showing how his body language post goal, his body language is so much more positive and direct with Vardy, and quite often they do talk a lot of guff on TV, but honestly this time you could see it in his body language, much more direct, making the runs, getting in behind. He is when he's on a roll, he's on a roll. And that's why we've seen 2 seasons in a row, like when he's on a scoring momentum, we're all picking him and we're all captaining him. As soon as he's got 2 or 3 in a row, 4, 5 and 6 are not far behind. So it's one to definitely keep an eye on.
Just looking at some of his numbers, if I can, during the restart period, to kind of allude to what Aaron's talking about. So only Antonio, Salah and Jesus had more shots from inside the penalty box during the restart period. 27 seems like a good number to me. That's the 4th most. 24 is Giroud in 5th. But Vardy only had 8 of those shots on target compared to Jesus 12, Antonio 16 and Salah 16. You have to scrap Antonio a bit because half of that was against Norwich. It's worth saying Jesus also played against Norwich during the period as well. So actually, when you look at those numbers, the amount of efforts he's having in the box, still extremely good. The amount of targets a little bit concerning. 8 shots on target from 27 shots in the box is a little bit concerning, I think. But I just feel like that's over kind of a small sample of period where that can get fixed, I think, personally.
Yeah, I agree with you. And let's be, we're talking about not having any Leicester assets and putting a positive spin on it, though. I will still remember last season, if you ask me which performances really stood out over Christmas when you brought your B team to our place, and the way that you guys set up and had, like, even when you had, we had corners and you're defending corners, you're setting yourselves up with 3 players on the halfway line ready to pounce and attack. And if Brendan Rodgers does that, and he likes to do that, right? He's attack-minded kind of coach. You still got the talent there to be scoring goals. Like Harvey Barnes at 7 million is still a good asset if you look at his record. He's one that I've not completely ruled out, Harvey Barnes, but and Leicester will play well and will score goals. We could easily be sitting here in 4, 5, 6 weeks thinking, yeah, we should have known better. We should have known that actually they do have the talent there, and we could have picked 1 or 2 of them possibly. Yeah, I do feel like that could happen.
I do think that if we start getting people like Pereira back, and when Evans is back and we've got that solid base again, then it gives the license for the forward players to flourish a little bit. And I mean, Barnes is an interesting one. It's funny you should mention him because he is at a good price point. I don't think 7's too bad a price point. He's in the likes of kind of the Foden, Greenwood type area. And if he goes on he's a bit of a confidence player. If he gets on a bit of a run, he's worth bringing in. And I obviously we spoke about this previously, but I brought him in at a point where I thought he was going to go off, and he did, but I'd taken him out before he did. But he is one of those players, and when he gets confidence going, he's one to keep an eye on. But the thing is with him is that he doesn't always play the full minutes, depending on how it's going. But if he's got confidence in him, then he will start majority of games at least. He's one of our most creative, really, and one of our most direct players. Yeah. So he's just one of those. He lacks composure in front of goal, lacks a little bit of confidence at times, but yeah, he's a good one to keep an eye on. But I would avoid the rest of the midfield. Maddison, stay away from Maddison, I think.
Okay, so definitely Barnes over Maddison. That was one of the questions I was going to ask. You definitely say Barnes. Yeah,
because Barnes will get in the box more often. He's more direct, and I mean Maddison is obviously on a lot of the set pieces and stuff, but I probably wouldn't go there. He's far too often he's outside the box, and he wants to get it in comfortable areas and spray it about, which is fine. That's his game, but he's not one of those to kind of be like on the half turn, spraying a little ball through it. He doesn't do that enough for me. So Barnes would be the one out of the price points I would go for if he gets on a run.
I'm going to challenge you, Suj, if I can. Before you do,
I was going to challenge Aaron. Go on, you challenge me.
I'm going to challenge you first, Suj. How many attacking returns do you think Harvey Barnes got last season?
4 goals, 7 assists, 11.
6 goals, 10 assists,
16 eh?
In 2,000 minutes.
Solid. Really
Isn't
good.
it? The problem is what Aaron's already alluded to. The restart period was alarming in the fact that the team was obviously struggling a bit with people like Maddison not available, and he wasn't automatic in that team. He played 372 minutes during the restart period.
It's funny you say that. It's exactly what I was going to challenge Aaron on. In terms
okay, moving on.
Because we had a conversation. I've got it up on my Twitter here where I was asking you about Barnes, and you said the same thing, confidence player, because I wanted him in that post-lockdown period, but he wasn't getting into the team, right? Albrighton or whoever was getting in ahead of him. And you very rightly said that it was because of the tactics you were taking to games when there was no crowd. Like he wanted a little bit more stability, and if teams were sitting in deeper with you, he felt like Albrighton was a better choice there. Now we know there's not going to be crowds in a couple of weeks' time. So with Harvey Barnes, is there still that risk where he was not getting the minutes post-lockdown that he won't again?
Yeah, it's just a slight on that is I think a big part of why Barnes didn't play as much after restart was because they changed the formation. So they went to a 3 at the back, which, looked a bit of a strange decision, but I think it was down more to personnel. But when you're playing a 3 at the back, you've got to have at least one defender that's relatively quick. And I mean, Johnny Evans is no slouch, but he's getting on a bit now. He's not the quickest.
Yeah.
And you've got someone like, they put Bennett in there, and I mean, he looks so out of his depth. It was untrue, really. But yeah, regards to Barnes, I think that was one of the reasons, because they wanted someone to track back a little bit more on that left-hand side, and they trusted Albrighton to do that more than him.
We spoke about that trust with Albrighton, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was the main reason. It's funny, you picking that text up that we spoke about.
We talked about Antonio that day as well.
Yes,
let's not talk about Antonio. As soon as we was like, what about Antonio? I was like, nah.
Sid, you fucking mugged yourself off there, mate.
No,
really badly.
That's the first thing. The first thing when I pulled it up was it said make that 4, and I was like, we talked about Antonio that day as well.
It was going to come up, wasn't it, for sure?
Of course, but but that what James just said there, 16 attacking returns in 2,500 minutes, was it, James? Is really good.
Yeah, the other thing I think with him, it's potential. I agree. To be honest, when you're talking, Aaron, about Barnes being someone who can be a bit streaky and that, I feel like that with your whole bloody team, actually, Vardy included, and the performances that you get on the pitch. You feel like a side who, if there was someone outside last season's top 4, you went, they're going to go and win 6-7 games in a row. Oddly enough, you'd possibly put you as likely as Arsenal, Tottenham or Wolves, for example. But then I also think you're just as likely to go that many games without winning a game at the moment on what I saw towards the end of last season. I think one of the reasons, and you mentioned it, obviously fixtures, why people are looking at some of the defensive assets is a lot of people obviously thinking of wild carding early, and just looking at the likes of Justin, particularly saying that he's 4.5 million. I'll have him in for West Brom and Burnley, and then I'm leaving. And I think that's part of the reason what a lot of the thinking is. Really interestingly, I was just looking while you guys were talking. Leicester are paired with Burnley from the rotation perspective this season. And actually, between the two of you, there's a rotation there where if you just went with the home games all the time, you don't come into any of the big six until game week 16. But the problem with that is you ain't fucking having Thomas or Justin for that long, because Pereira's going to be back by like about game week 5 or something. So it's not a long-term thought process. I think those looking at Justin, it's short-term measure to go. The first 2 game weeks are good. Then you walk into Manchester City, perfect. Game week 3 is when I'm thinking of wildcarding anyway. Or they're looking to attack you literally just for game week 1. I think that's what a lot of the process is. Plus, I think we underestimate how many people from a selecting team perspective literally just look at game week 1. And on paper, you've got one of the best fixtures, mate. So that's always going to like appeal to people when they're looking at assets. I think Justin is acceptable for those who are wildcarding early, but nothing else.
He's only 7.2% owner. Just had a quick look there, which isn't huge. It's one of those, I feel like if you listen to the Twitter bubble, you'd think it was into double figures or maybe a bit more, but 7.2% isn't necessarily huge. Interesting to see. What about, I mean, you've got wealthy owners. Any transfer talk? Anyone that you can see coming in that you think you'd like to see come in? You could obviously do with a little bit of defensive reinforcement.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely do with some. We could do with another centre half, really. We have got Benkovic at the back, who he's been out on loan a couple of seasons now, and you know they do rave about him a bit down there. So it'd be interesting to see whether he goes with him or whether he goes with, if he's going to play a back 4 anyway, if he goes with Wes Morgan. Because for me, as much as Morgan's great to be still at the club and around the changing room and stuff for the younger players, he shouldn't be anywhere near the first 11 for me now. Yeah. I mean, he's been absolutely fantastic for us, obviously, since we signed him from Forest, but he's there really now as purely backup. And if we're going into the start of the season with him at the back, you know, I think that's a worry. There have been a few names bandied about. I mean, in replacement for Chilwell, Tagliafico has been bandied about. I can't say that I've seen a lot of him, but the bits that I've seen, he looks pretty decent, pretty attacking, so he would fit the mould of what we're looking for in that position. But no, there's not been anything concrete. I mean, there's a couple that have signed extensions to contract. So Maddison is now tied his contract down, which you may have seen, and Vardy's actually signed a new deal. I think it's today. So
to his 45th birthday.
Are we still having this FPL debate?
They'll still be banging him in.
Yeah.
He might be, you know. It's that fucking Red Bull and Port, isn't it?
and holding on to a few maybe might be important as well. I don't know if there's still rumours around Iheanacho going away, but I really like, you know, like if we had him down at West Ham, I think I'd be happy with that as our first choice. I really like Iheanacho. I don't know what everyone else's thoughts are on him, but it's not a player that gets talked about a lot, is there?
No, not really. And he's done quite well when he's come in for us. And if they're going to set up with, you know, giving some more support to Vardy, which they probably should, you know, everyone talks about he's not getting any younger and stuff, and he's had to change his game a little bit. But it definitely needs to. Oh, just bear with me.
Yeah, sorry.
2 minutes, Bruce.
I'll give you 5 minutes.
Okay.
I'm about to clear off.
All right, no problem. Okay, sure.
Aaron's in the middle of work. that guy just become a podcast hero.
Sorry about that. What was I talking about?
Iheanacho.
I just had a look at his stats. James was saying 5 goals, 4 assists in 950 minutes. So you're talking about 10 games there. That's a return a game.
Yeah. No, he's done quite well since he's come in. He gets a bit of unfair criticism, really, and I think I just don't know whether Rodgers completely trusts him So I guess we could do with reinforcements up there. But the thing is, if it depends on how he's going to play again. If he's going to play two up top, then Iheanacho's, even in that Bournemouth game, he did really well, and he took him off at half time. And it was like baffling because we had control of the game. He looked dangerous. It was almost as if Rodgers was trying to be a bit too clever for me. I don't know what other Leicester fans think, but that's how it came across to me.
He made some strange comments after that game about what he thought at half time in saying that you didn't have control. I mean, I was sitting there, I was loopy drunk because we beat Arsenal, but you were in complete control, mate. So I don't know what he was thinking.
They didn't even have a shot on goal.
Bournemouth looked like they'd have played you till Wednesday and wouldn't have scored, mate. So
yeah.
I mean, you had a couple of moments of madness, but yeah, I didn't. It was strange. I know what you're saying there. I was just thinking, actually, with him, he's obviously had 2 transfer windows. This will be his 3rd. Do you think he's bought anyone decent for you?
You wouldn't say Tielemans was a Rodgers?
No, I'll tell you why I say that. It's possibly a little bit harsh, but with Tielemans would have come in on loan before Rodgers got the job.
So you wouldn't call him a Rodgers signing.
Kind of part there. It was just something I commented on one of the pods we did last week, Aaron, about his transfer record at Liverpool. Was in terms of the players he bought, what he actually got out of some of the players that were there, Sterling, Sturridge, Suarez, etc. Brilliant. Actually, when he went into the market himself, wasn't great. And clearly, you need something, I think, in terms of a new left back, a new centre back, probably a bit more coverage, because obviously when you had Ndidi injured this year, that was a real blow. That felt like the start of, we're struggling a bit here, knowing that he's not there.
Yeah.
Although I didn't think he was great, actually, when he did come back in, unusually for him. But I do think he's a top player. So you definitely need some more reinforcements. On Iheanacho, to cover that off, I know what you're saying, Suj, in terms of if he played, you'd be really interested at 6 million. His XG for his 378 minutes that he played during restart is 2.86, which is massive. Vardy's is 3.9 over every minute played, 810. So his XG and his minutes played, he's matching up to the idea of, this guy's capable of a return per 90 minutes. Unfortunately, for FPL terms, per 90 minutes doesn't matter. What I feel about Iheanacho is, I don't think he's good for Vardy. I think there was one game where you played the split forwards away to Villa in December where you were brilliant. And then I think Rodgers got a bit obsessed with trying to change the system. I think when Vardy plays in a 2 up front, he needs someone who's going to do the work for him in terms of dropping short and linking and looking for him at every opportunity. Because your best weapon is, can you get Vardy away? Everybody knows it, but if you do it properly, it's incredibly hard to stop. Iheanacho's just not that sort of player. He's quite greedy, overthinks things sometimes. Put him in front of goal, he can finish. There's no doubt about it. He would do great with someone, I'd imagine a partner like Slimani, actually, who you had. I don't even know, is he still at the club? I feel like he's had about 4 loans, Islam Slimani. But a proper target man who then he could run off. I think Vardy's better on his own.
I just don't think Slimani's got a future. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he evolves as how we set up, because, like you say, he's not really signed anyone of any note yet. He's obviously done really well with the players that he's had there. But yeah, I think he's really got to earn his money this season, because there'll be a lot of, I think, to be honest, especially with the fixtures that we have to start with, if we are struggling in the first 6 to 8 game weeks, then the fans might get on his back, as silly as that sounds, because of how last season ended. I mean, if it doesn't look like we're evolving as a team, and I think that the chairman, that you know what they're like. Our owners are very, they only do the best for the club. Yeah, they will. And obviously, when Ranieri was sacked, it was, I was one of those that thought it was very extremely harsh, and he'd earned the right to get us out of it. But they saw something in what was happening behind the scenes that wasn't right, and they did it. So I think he's got a bit of pressure on him at the start of the season, and he's got.
So with Flippy on his head, it might be a good thing that there's no fans there then.
Yeah, I suppose so.
In a roundabouts way. I agree. I feel like he's under pressure, which feels silly. But I think part of it is that I always think, if you think about those first 9 months, I look at Leicester and going, variations of 4-3-3/4-2-3-1, perfect. I just feel like this whole restart period with with the three at the black's been overthought. I think a lot of it came about through fear for whatever reason, because actually, if you'd thought about it properly in hindsight, you go, Chilwell and Pereira as wing-backs, blinding. Love them two as wing-backs. Now we're asking Justin and Thomas to do it, and suddenly we've got Bennett and Morgan in the back three, and suddenly you look at that and go, this is weak. This is a mid-table team, being honest. That's how it felt watching you towards the end. Put all them best players back in the first 11 and put it in a 4-3-3. You can go and finish 5th or 6th again, mate. So
yeah, it was
it's encouraging to hear he's going to go back to a back 4 by the sounds of it.
Well, I mean, I've only seen the start of how they set up, but surely that has to be a bit of an indication of how he's going to set up.
I don't think having shit defenders means you should play an extra one. I don't think that solves. We got Morgan and Bennett. Fuck it, we'll play the two of them with Evans. I don't think that fixes the problem. I mean, to be honest, you know what I think of my own team at the moment. Watching Kane try and go in between Morgan and Bennett in game week 37, you think, fucking, this side's been brilliant all season. What am I looking at here? So you were right. Bennett was out of his depth, mate, and Morgan, it's through no criticism. His age has gone. He's probably still very good for the club in terms of his leadership skills. Been there, done it, got the t-shirt, etc. Don't remind me about that one. I haven't got the t-shirt. But yeah, get Evans and Soyuncu back in that back 4. I genuinely think you need to buy a centre half now, because I think as much as people want to look at West Brom and Burnley in the first 2, if it's Soyuncu plus one of them 2, I don't trust that to keep a clean sheet against anybody. Personally, so I think for me, I would be avoiding.
Yeah, I agree.
I couldn't see me starting with a Leicester asset unless his name's Jamie Vardy, and I think I would take it as a short term, ready to leave. Yeah,
I mean, the only one with Vardy is because he's at that 10, and I mean, I would have looked at Martial from the start, but the fact that he's got a blanking game, he's obviously a nice move down to. But there's better options for less. So, you're relying on us as a team, and I just don't know how we're going to go to start with. So,
but I think there's some people who would look at the idea of going, because to be honest, I'm looking at doing it slightly different, but I could see why people would look at, say, in game week 2, Vardy to Martial, Heung-min Son to Bruno Fernandes as a -4. I could see people looking at that, and if you're going to go up to Fernandes, just for example, then you're probably going to come down to Martial. So, and that's where I think Vardy falls into that category again. That first one fixture, he's a great shout. To be honest with you, he's one of the best captaincy options in game week 1.
Yeah, and he likes to goal against West Brom as well. Away.
There's no crowd there though. He does like to celebrate in front of them as well.
Well, exactly. He'll still do the same celebration if he gets a goal there.
If you run up to the camera and give it to him, well, he does like let's call it a local game, Jamie Vardy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Be interesting to see how many people do line up with Leicester City assets come game week 1. And you had just to touch on, you had a good FPL season. You had a really good Sky season last year as well. That was your first season, right?
Yeah, it was. Well, back to Leicester. I mean, Soyuncu cost me really, because I had him as captain in that Bournemouth game.
Hi.
Yeah. So I mean, I was in the top 100 then, so it could have ended slightly differently, really. But now.
Going, Aaron.
What? Sorry.
I'm going.
Okay, I'll see you in 2 minutes. All right.
See you, mate.
So no, it could have ended better. I think I finished 125th in the end.
Oh, okay.
And that's first season.
Yeah, first season.
That's brilliant.
It's really good.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it actually, and it was, I've probably spoke about this with you guys. The 13:30 pod you did with Paul Sky player, really got me into thinking, well, maybe just give it a go. And I enjoyed it. Yeah, the FPL season ended badly in the end because I was about 40k and then tried to do something special in my mini league, and it didn't work. So I ended up outside the top 100k because I got rid of KDB. I got rid of all sort of the big hitters. Everyone else that my other guy had above me. So it was one of those.
You got to take that chance and go for it.
Exactly. So bragging rights.
I wouldn't have.
Point in season. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Does it?
KDB, now different option.
I should have kept him and captained him because the other guy didn't. So mistakes, but never mind. I had a fairly decent season in the end. But
Good rank. You know your fantasy onions, and I suspect that you'll probably be starting without Leicester assets, possibly in both. Although there's some interesting Sky ones as well. Justin actually again in Sky for the start before the overhaul at 6.3. I think could be interesting. Vardy is always a possibility for Sky if the timing's right and the way the fixtures work, which at the
TV
time of
fixtures
recording
we need to know.
Thanks, Serge. Which at the time of recording we don't know the TV fixtures. So yeah, a couple to keep an eye on. Maybe Harvey Barnes in Sky as well. So do you know what? It's harder to go without players from your own team in Sky than in FPL. I can tell you that. I will have Spurs players in Sky this year.
yeah, no, I can see that for sure.
Yeah, but I won't have Leicester players. So there we go. Aaron, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. I really think that come game week 4, 5, 6, if a lot of us are going without Leicester assets, then we may be tapping you up to say, hang on a second here. There may be some opportunities to pick a couple of good ones up, and hopefully Pereira getting fit and maybe Barnes getting minutes means we won't be looking at those guys very soon. For anybody that's listening to the pod that doesn't follow Aaron on Twitter, it's Aaron Lagor, which is Lagor, Aaron AARON. But as always, you can head over to Planet FPL Pod, James's Twitter profile, click on lists, and you'll see all 20 of our FPL correspondents there. Anything else to add, James?
No, Bradley Parker, Wolves next.
Keeping it in the Midlands, are we?
Yeah, why not? These two don't
There
like
we
each
go.
other either. But similar abilities in terms of expectations next year. Just before I go, actually, I mean, one final question. Where do you think you finish next year?
Oh, top 8.
I think it'd be disappointing if you didn't,
Yeah.
in spite of what you
Yeah,
said.
I don't think we'll finish in the top 6.
I'd probably have you about there at the moment, 7th, 8th.
I think everybody that we were speaking to thinks the top 6 is going to get back to being the top 6, which means it's 7th or 8th.
I'm telling you,
fight
we will
for,
finish anywhere between 4th and 12th, mate.
Yeah.
And possibly worse if it's really bad. Aaron, thanks very much. Really enjoyed that, mate.
Yeah, appreciate it as always. And there we go.
What
to all
he
the
said.
listeners, yeah, exactly. Make sure that you, wherever you're listening to the podcast, you say subscribed or hit the notification bell or follow on Spotify, because we do have plenty more of these Correspondent Week podcasts coming for you, giving you insight. And we're really looking forward to the new promoted teams that are upcoming as well, because those are the ones we get some real good, fresh insight as well. As always, most important thing is that you all stay safe. Ciao for now.
Thanks, Aaron. Cue music, please, man, child.